consider us the underdog. We have a lot of work to do to earn the vote of the American people. That's why we're on this bus tour today, and we're going to be traveling this country as we've been and talking with folks, listening to folks, and hopefully earning their votes over the next 79 days.
All right, of course, you may know her, Vice President Kamala Harris, downplaying new polling that shows her taking the lead over former President Trump as the Democratic National Convention, of course, gets underway here day one in Chicago. Her mantra is kind of is, we are still the underdog, to have an underdog mentality between now and November.
Yeah, and the new ABC News Washington Post IPSOS poll that you're looking at here on your screen, Harris is up by 6 percentage points among likely voters. Now, that's a notable shift from July when that same poll showed Trump and President Biden virtually tied.
Again, the difference the last 4 weeks have made it really, it is staggering, the turnaround for the Democratic side here. Earlier this morning, in fact, we spoke with Democratic Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. We talked to him remotely here on the show. He is in Chicago, of course, for the convention.
He said his state has seen significant progress on key issues like the economy in recent months, and he predicts that would continue under a Harris administration.
But people will continue to see that her plans and her policies actually put working families first. Her plans and her policies make sure we're focusing on things like basic affordability for working families, making sure we're doing things like capping insulin prices and making healthcare more affordable, making sure we're doing things like increasing housing inventory and making more people owners of an American dream, making sure we're doing things like raising wages and saying that you can both support workers and support businesses and you don't have to choose between those two things. That's what her policies are laying out. And so I'm excited about the fact that she, along with Governor Walz and all of us as surrogates, are now going to spend the next 78 days going all over the country to be able to make our case as to why her vision is one that actually honors what we hope for in this country's future.
Deputy Political Director Joe St. George joins us now from Chicago. Hey, Joe, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, guys. Obviously, this is in what has been a year full of unscripted, unpredictable, historic moments. This is, at its heart, a bit of a scripted event, one that Politico, the political world, the Democratic political world especially, has been able to plan for well over a year. We always knew Democrats would gather here in Chicago in August in 2024. Of course, a few months ago, we thought it would be President Biden's big week. It's Vice President Harris's big week, but it's President Biden's big night. Here on day one of the DNC, organizers of this convention making sure to give the primetime big speaking slot to the current commander-in-chief. We're also going to hear tonight from former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and First Lady Jill Biden, but it will be President Biden's moment in many ways to say farewell to the Democratic Party. It's been a 50-year-plus career. Remember, this is an individual who became a U.S. Senator at the age of 30. It's also an opportunity, perhaps the last big opportunity for President Biden to have a nationally televised primetime address, millions of people watching, to highlight his administration's accomplishments, talk about Vice President Harris's role, and you'll hear this phrase throughout the day here on Scripps News and throughout other pundits' coverage, and that is pass the torch, attempt to pass the torch to Vice President Harris. After this evening's address by President Biden, he'll actually head west to California, a symbolic departure where then Vice President Harris's big week will really get underway. The Obamas take center stage tomorrow with the roll call. Vice presidential nominee Tim Walz on Wednesday. Vice President Harris's big speech, of course, that traditional Thursday night primetime speaking slot for the nominee when that formal acceptance occurs. Of course, Democrats have an advantage that the Republicans did not in Milwaukee, and that is Hollywood tends to lean a little left, which means that you're going to see a lot of celebrities perform, speak at this convention in Chicago. In fact, each night we'll have a different celebrity host, celebrity MC, guiding delegates through the various events. But that's what's going on inside the convention hall. A big question mark storyline here on day one is the protesting. We've heard about it and previewed it for weeks, really months. Chicago has a history of protesting. 1968, there were thousands of arrests after that year's volatile Democratic convention here in Chicago. And there are many parallels between 2024 and 1968. In 1968, the incumbent American president did not seek re-election. In 1968, there was political violence. In 1968, 1968, there were deep divisions over international conflicts. In the 60s, it was Vietnam. Today, it's Israel and Gaza. The Chicago Police Department telling reporters, though, in the last several days, they are ready for what is to come on the streets of Chicago beginning this afternoon. Take a listen.
Our officers have been trained to deal with numerous situations that could occur. If you want to express your First Amendment, please do so. But do it within the boundaries of the law, right? No violent acts, no acts of vandalism. And as long as that occurs, then people will have their voices heard.
As far as former President Donald Trump, he will attempt to counter-program the Democrats' big week with barnstorming swing states. He'll be campaigning in Pennsylvania on this Monday. Of course, the national headlines, the national spotlight, though, will be reserved for Democrats. That's the way it typically is. Republicans had their big week in Milwaukee several weeks back, but former President Trump certainly doesn't have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines all week. The polling numbers just show too much of an advantage right now for Vice President Kamala Harris. And, guys, you know this. Traditionally, after conventions, candidates get a bump. We'll see if the Democrats have a successful week here in Chicago.